Welcome to the Get Real podcast. I'm also going to be your host, and today we have Jonny Arnett. We've had him before. He's actually kind of the guy that helped me get started with my podcast. Jonny, man, thank you for taking the time to come on the show. We broke down Anthony Davis not too long ago in our first collab, and I just wanted to thank you for coming on again.
Yeah, thanks for having me, man. It's good to be back.
So, from what the breakdown I saw from Woj, it was AD to the Lakers, and the Pelicans got Ingram, Hart, Lonzo, and 3 first-round picks. I think it was a 2021 first-round pick. I think 2024, if I'm not mistaken. And then, obviously, the number 4 overall pick in this upcoming draft. I'm stunned they didn't get Kuzma also. I heard that was a holdup, and I thought, you know what? I don't blame them from initially wanting to keep Kuzma because fit-wise, it's still a perfect situation. But I thought at one point, okay, they made their initial offer. They're eventually going to stop holding back and then include Kuzma, and then it'll wrap up. But nope, y'all are keeping him. What was your first thought of this trade and what it means for Los Angeles?
It was that exact thing with Kuzma. I just could not believe that they were keeping him. With all of the information that was leaking early on, back around the trade deadline, it sounded like the Lakers were putting everything out there. And so I thought it might take something more along those lines, but I really just think New Orleans basically shot themselves in the foot, because if they had taken this trade at the trade deadline earlier, then I think they could have got a lot more from the Lakers. But I think as Anthony Davis made it clear, I do not want to play for the Celtics. And after what happened with Kevin Durant, and so him going to the Knicks kind of fell through, I think all the other suitors that could have possibly had him just kind of fell through. And so because I'm a Lakers fan, I am incredibly happy with. I'm so happy with. So it's gonna be really interesting to see what happens with this team, to see what happens with LeBron, Anthony Davis, and they still have room for another max player. So it's gonna be crazy. What were your initial thoughts?
Well, like you said, I was stunned they kept Kuzma. They probably would have gotten a better offer. I mean, part of it came down to Katie getting the nasty injury, and now it seemed like New York was told they weren't even, they weren't even in the mix. And then obviously the Lakers going from the 11th overall, selection there in the draft all the way to 4. And then maybe New Orleans getting the overall pick, number 1 overall pick, kind of changed things too. A lot of things just kept the seam falling in place for the Lakers to have a better odds for Anthony Davis that no one really saw coming. So kept thinking like all these dominoes kept falling in quick succession that just helped the Lakers that nobody could have really accounted for, and that I personally never saw. One small thing that seems kind of interesting, it won't make a huge difference, but there's obviously still the issue is if Anthony Davis will take his trade kicker, which will drop, if he does, nothing crazy, but it will drop that available cap space from $32 to $28 million. Nothing groundbreaking, but it might just be enough to take him out from like a Kemba or someone else that wants the max. But even then, you can still find the right guys to fill that roster. For some reason, I've just heard scatter reports on free agents they're interested of. I heard Derek Favors in the mix. I just think you need to go after perimeter 3-and-D guys who can still D up, because unless LeBron's changing that, he still doesn't play defense. Anthony Davis is fine. Kuzma is okay. He's average, I think. You still need that on the perimeter to help you out, and obviously as much spacing as possible. I really want to see how well LeBron works with Anthony Davis, because we heard the stigma of him not working well with big men. And obviously Anthony Davis is much different than Bosh or Love, but there is that kind of stigma that will be in the back of your mind. Is LeBron going to succeed shots? Will he keep dominating the ball? It's just, what is he going to actually change to make sure Anthony Davis fits in as perfectly as possible?
Yeah, I agree with that, and that's going to be really interesting. It's just going to be really intriguing to see how they build this team going forward, because the Lakers had a lot of one-year expiring contracts. So a lot of the players that they bring into this following season are just going to be a brand new team. I think they kind of realized halfway through when they picked up like Mike Muscala, they were trying to pick up like shooters halfway through the season. Kind of realized they'd goofed, trying to get a bunch of playmakers to surround LeBron. But LeBron's still that same guy. He's facilitating up top. He's penetrating. He's kicking to the corners. He needs shooters to be put around him. And so I agree. Some 3-and-D guys would be nice. Even if they can't bring in another superstar, Kuzma might be that third star that you need anyway. And so if they could just surround him with some shooters, I feel like that'd be a smart way to take it. So, we'll see how it goes with that. But how do you feel? I want to know, how do you feel as an NBA fan now that, like, the Lakers are becoming like their own version of a super team? If they were to add a third star, whether it be a Jimmy Butler or a Kemba Walker or someone along those lines, how would you feel about them being a super team now in this current NBA?
Well, I think as currently stands, and this applies to basically every NBA team, but I think it does especially to the Lakers, one injury to either AD and LeBron, and that's it. I mean, with LeBron, you don't have to worry about that as much. He's Iron Man up until this past season. I don't know if Father Age is eventually going to catch up to him. We never typically see it coming. Sometimes it's just really abrupt. I don't expect that with LeBron, but Anthony Davis does have sort of that injury history, so just one bad thing. I mean, we just saw Klay and KD go out just by landing funny. No contact. And Klay is also Iron Man. Danny didn't foul him at all, barely touched him. He just landed funny. So, again, this qualifies to a lot of guys, but I think, like, man, if they kind of have to kind of get someone extra just in case. Even so, at that point, you got to kind of weigh, is it worth getting Kemba Walker and just not really having any depth? Or do we just want to surround the pieces? LeBron has always said over the past 2 years, I'm going to play more off ball, I promise. And then he does it for 10 games, and then never happens again. I think he goes in that with good intentions. I don't think he's lying, but I don't think he can help himself. It's who he is. It's ingrained into his psyche. It's how LeBron is. It won him 3 titles. I don't, even if he says he's going to do this or that, it's just putting it into execution is going to be difficult. So even though it puts them obviously into contention, I don't know if it just, they're the walk-away favorites. Now, KD and Klay being out does really open that window. I'm really curious to see if another team makes a big move, obviously not as big as what the Raps just did, but makes kind of a move they wouldn't have made otherwise because it's so wide open. I still think Kawhi is going to the Clippers regardless. I think that's in the books. That's just a me thing, and we'll see if they can add someone else or it'll be a great battle for Los Angeles, kind of, so to speak, if that were to be the case, but there's just a lot of nothing certain, but Kemba is definitely a guy I've heard was their biggest priority coming to this offseason, like immediately.
Yeah. If the Lakers, obviously with the move that happened today, and if the Lakers add a third superstar, personally as a fan, I would be super, super excited. Been a Laker fan my whole life, but as a general NBA fan, I would want to see the Lakers stay where they're at now. Because part of the interesting thing is, it's out of our control. KD and Klay both went down. We know KD's probably going to miss all of next season.
Oh, yeah.
Klay, at the very least, is going to miss most of next season. This is going to be the most competitively balanced NBA that we've had in maybe over a decade. Because if you go, there's been teams that were clear favorites to get to the finals for about the last 10 years. And now with the Warriors taking a step back, the East being what it is, Kawhi Leonard might even be on another team next year, and the Lakers now bumping up, and the Boston Celtics didn't even achieve as well as they expected, not to mention Kyrie might be leaving. This NBA that we're about to head into is something we haven't experienced in a long time, and that aspect I'm looking forward to. And as a general NBA fan, that I would like to see stay that way heading into next season. I don't want to see any super teams that are going to...
Right. And to that point, like you said, we need to try to keep it balanced. Just like you're right, because since the early 2000s, it's been the Shaq Kobe Lakers, the Tim Duncan Spurs, and the Lakers again, and it's always been kind of a back and forth. Spurs were in the mix 13, 14, and then it's just been Golden State since. So it's basically been 3 teams in the West since the 2000s, with a few little blurps here and there with OKC one year, the Mavs one year, yada yada. So yeah, I would like to see that kind of balanced out. A lot of teams still have a max cap spot, like Utah. Denver could generate one if they move Plumlee and decline Paul Millsap's team option. It'd be close to a max cap spot anyway, or they could make a trade to take someone else, maybe have the assets to move for a Beal if it was the right deal. So it's just the Mavs could have Kemba Walker with their max cap spot. So there's just a lot of teams who can make a run for it, and it's going to be pretty exciting. I don't know what my Spurs are going to do personally. I kind of hope they kind of retool and take this time to move up in the draft, but even if they keep it the same, Murray's going to come back, and we'll see if they add a 3-and-D guy, which should help things tremendously with another year under their belt. It's completely wide open, and that's what I like. I mean, the Lakers are probably going to be the favorite, especially if they add someone else, but it won't be overwhelming. It'll be really fun, and I'm really excited for that.
Yeah, and everybody, of course, as they should, is talking about LeBron teaming up with Anthony Davis and the Lakers and everything that's going on there. But New Orleans has got an interesting team now after this trade with Zion Williamson, who's going to be in the picture. And then you've got Lonzo and Ingram, and seeing what all those players, how they're just all going to mesh. That could be a fun and exciting team. And with all those young guys developing together, not to mention a lot of those young Laker players are going to have a lot to prove and going to have a chip on their shoulder. If these teams were to meet in the playoffs in the near future, Lakers and New Orleans, man, there would be so much potential drama there. I know I'm kind of getting ahead of myself with that one, but that's going to be a young and exciting team that'll be really interesting to see how it develops together.
Oh, yeah, you already have LeVar coming out saying this is the biggest mistakes the Lakers have ever made, that they're going to regret this day. LeVar already put a curse on y'all. I didn't know if you knew that, saying the Lakers aren't going to win any championships. The Lonzo era is over already. The guy who's supposed to break Magic Johnson's records to have his jersey retired as a Laker. The Ball brothers are supposed to form a trio there with LeVar being an assistant coach, but that's already gone. That's kaput. I'm interested in seeing the fit from a spacing standpoint in New Orleans. Obviously, their roster isn't completely set, and they're looking for another star. They're actually looking to move that 4th overall pick for an all-star. I don't know who's available or who they could get that would really mesh well with them. I really want to see Lonzo and Ingram take that next step into being consistent as shooters, as guys who take it to the rim. They don't consistently do that. I've heard excuses for Ingram out the wazoo. The common excuse I've heard for him is that, he never has the ball in his hands. LeBron takes it, Lonzo takes it, Rondo takes it. And, I do think the kid has talent, but I really think he's underperformed the majority of his career. And I think he even said that earlier this season. He has higher expectations of himself. Lonzo, I've never bought into the Jason Kidd hype or the Magic hype. People consider this to be an insult. I don't. I think it's somewhat of a compliment. A rich man's Ricky Rubio is who I had him projected as. A Ricky Rubio who can defend arguably better and can shoot is a guy who makes the All-Star 2 or 3 times. That ain't bad. I just don't think he's going to be a transcendent player as guys make you out to believe. But in terms of the trade itself, considering what the Spurs got for Kawhi, who held him hostage, and the yield they got for Anthony Davis, outside of not getting Tatum, and maybe they could have made a move for Tatum when they had the chance, but we'll see what those guys become. It's still not a bad yield. I'm just really curious to see how those players actually develop and mesh together, X's and O's wise on the court.
Yeah, I agree. As far as your kind of evaluation of their talent, I agree from the standpoint of Lonzo. Just obviously going to be working on his shooting, but I don't see enough. I can't remember which analyst it was that said it, but there's not enough dog in Lonzo. He's quick to give up the ball. You don't always see that competitive tenacity and fire. He showed it a little bit on defense, but he plays a very relaxed game.
Yep.
He's quick to get the ball up. Doesn't necessarily create a play as a superstar would, but kind of just plays within the flow of the offense. And then anybody who watched Laker games consistently last year would not say that Brandon Ingram didn't get his opportunities. He got his opportunities. They actually put him in a lot of isolation plays, even a lot of isolation plays towards the end of the game. They gave him his opportunities. I think if he ever, which we'll see if it happens, but the guy is so sleek and slender. If he ever grows into his man body, that would certainly help. because he loves to attack the basket, but he just can't finish under contact. When he's under duress and takes a hit down low, he can't finish the play, and he's kind of then reliant on getting a whistle from the referee. So, but they've got time now. They don't have to play alongside LeBron James. They can develop slowly with besides Zion. That's going to be a really, really fun team. And I'm not really worried about LeVar and his predictions. Honestly, what it reminded me of Dan Gilbert right after LeBron left Cavaliers and joined Miami. So he's never going to win a championship, will win a championship before that self-proclaimed king. I'm like, that's what I'm hearing from LeVar right now. And it's like, bro, you've got absolutely nothing to back that up right now. The Lakers are looking pretty scary, and they're one star away from being right there for a championship.
You know, it's funny you mentioned that because that guy was just on TV around the trade deadline saying, we don't want to be a Pelican. We want to be a Suns. They were really pushing the Suns. And so I'm guessing that kind of changed because they got Zion. Now they're like, okay, we can play in New Orleans now. That's kind of going back to what I said about things breaking out for the Lakers. That's one of them because I really wasn't sure Lonzo would be part of the trade because his dad was spouting at the mouth saying, we don't want to be in New Orleans. Go move us to the Suns. Go move us to the Bulls. Like, he said that undisputed, every Fox show, wherever he can go. Like, he was saying that. And, I mean, you could say it's just his opinion, but Lonzo never counters what his dad says and says, oh, you know my dad, he's crazy. Never. Which, kind of, not to go too off subject, but I kind of have the conspiracy theory that Lonzo lets his dad actually be his mouthpiece publicly. And it's kind of perfect because if he ever says anything too outlandish, he can always fall back on, well, you know who my dad is. He says he's better than MJ. Don't worry about him. But he never does that. And there's no accountability if it's the wrong thing. So, because people love listening to LeVar talk. But to your point about Ingram going to the rim, Lonzo never does that. Like, dude, you're 6'6". Like, that's Manu Ginobili size. I'm not saying he should be like Manu, but you have the physical body to take that sucker to the rack with authority. I know guards are getting a little bit bigger, but they're not that big just yet. They're still 6'3", 6'4". Some of them, like DeJounte Murray, 6'5", but not many. So you have the size to post up and take it to the rack, but it's just he gets too timid. He doesn't do it. And then I don't know if he's scared of being hit because he's bad at free throws, but it's just a bad combination of things for him. And so, like I said, Ricky Rubio-esque. Maybe better, maybe Rich Man's version, but certainly no Jason Kidd or Magic.
Yeah, for sure. So what are you seeing now with this whole Western Conference? I mean, it's pretty early to be predicting, but hell, let's do it anyway. How do you kind of see things unfolding now with the current layout? I'm excited about the idea that, like, I could see any one of the contending Western Conference teams in the finals now. Like, I could see the Blazers performing well and maybe miraculously squeaking out a trip to the finals as things currently lie. I could see the Rockets in the finals as things currently lie, or the Lakers, or
Denver.
There's a lot of go, and that excites me. It's been so long since the Western Conference has been like that. So where are your kind of power rankings with how things line up with the West right now?
You know, it's really tough to say. I mean, from the standpoint of, like I said, I think someone else will make a move because it's so wide open to kind of get that extra, first step above other teams. Denver is a team I value highly. I've been on this bandwagon since the start of the season, been hyping them up. I've been all in on that Denver bandwagon, and they performed up to expectation. And Jamal Murray's 21. Jokic is 24. They're babies. And they just had their first postseason that's only going to add to their experience. If Michael Porter Jr. is anything like he was hyped up to be going into college, which was a consensus top 3 player in that draft, if he's half of that coming back from those back injuries, damn, that Denver team is going to come along. Do not sleep on them. But I'm curious as to what does OKC do? Do they really value Steven Adams? Do they probably want to give him up and look for more spacing? He's probably their best asset outside of Paul George. Maybe they look into that. We heard Houston put everyone on the market, and there are some rumors that CP3 wants out from some credible sources, that he actually doesn't want to play there, and the Lakers have been a part of that. Now, I doubt that happens, but that's been the word. God forbid that happens, because Father Time has caught up to him. It's done. That's really my opinion. But even Harden by himself is still a killer, still an MVP. But I think we're seeing rim running bigs like DeAndre's a negative these past 2 years on almost every statistic. Capella's your best case scenario, but even then he showed his limits in the playoffs. So I think there's some big moves. If Utah, since D'Angelo Russell is probably leaving Brooklyn with Kyrie going there because Kyrie fires his agent, it feels like a foregone conclusion. He's going to Brooklyn. Does D'Angelo Russell consider going to Utah with Donovan? Because all they need is some offense, and that team is set. I mean, there's a lot of ways they can play it. Are the Spurs going to make any moves? Do they keep? They say DeMar is going to work on his three-point shooting? He's already, people kind of didn't see this. I didn't really see this till I looked at the numbers. He actually had his first year as an average defender, an actual, barely a plus, but basically average. And their biggest weakness was defense. Well, now DeJounte Murray, second all-team NBA defensive team, is coming back. Derek White looked good. Lonnie Walker, the Spurs say that they're going to give a big role to him, which I haven't heard them say that since Kawhi Leonard. I mean, when they hype up a guy at that young age in his second year, that only gets me excited. They'll have a few picks. They'll have a few options in free agency. Maybe go for Ariza. It's so tough to tell because they're all so dead even. But I'm going to put Denver, Houston up there. The Lakers for sure. I think the Golden State Warriors should consider sitting this year out, quite honestly. Because we saw the Lakers jump up from 11-4 and the Pelicans jump up from 8th or 9th to the 1st. Clay's not coming back till maybe March. Even then, I want to preserve the long-term health of Curry and Clay for my franchise. Why am I going to put more miles on those guys' legs? I mean, Curry just came out of 5 straight finals, and he's not built like LeBron, so that's probably going to hinder him more. Iggy's going to retire. Livingston looks like he's going to retire. There goes even more depth. So you're left with Alonzo McKinney and Quinn Cook and Looney. I think they should sit it out. And sports doctors are saying that when they look at the replay of that injury, they think it's going to be closer to 10, 11, 12 months than the 9 or 8 month spectrum. So I think Golden State should sit out, but there's still other teams like Denver that are going to be on the rise, and Sacramento.
Yeah, well, it's really interesting with Golden State. That situation is really dicey because if they were to offer max deals, which I expect them to do, to both Clay and KD, and say both guys re-sign, they are going to be crazy into the luxury tax.
Oh, yeah.
For a team that realistically might be fighting for a 7th or 8th seed. So do they do that? They're obviously going to offer the max to Clay. I feel like that's a must. If they don't take KD, that might free up they'll free up some money and they won't be as much into the luxury tax, but they might be the most expensive team in the NBA, or at least one of the top 3 most expensive teams in the NBA for a team that's just fighting to get in the playoffs. And I'm really excited, actually, to see what Steph is able to do. Part of the things that really bummed me out about Kevin Durant joining the Warriors wasn't just the fact the Warriors were heavily favored, but it was coming off of Steph Curry's 2016 campaign where he was shooting 50%, 40, and 90, averaging 30 points a game, unanimous MVP, and it was like he had to take a back seat when KD came in. Now we're going to see for the first time where Steph Curry is having to carry the offense. If you think about some of the greatest players of all time, at some point in their career, we got to see what they were capable of as the guy carrying the offense. We saw LeBron in the early 2000s when he dragged that team to the finals in 2007. We saw Kobe in 2006. We saw Michael Jordan early in his career. We saw, Iverson have to do that. I'm so excited to see what kind of numbers is Steph Curry going to put up when it's basically just him and Draymond. So that'll be interesting.
For sure, and I think you just got to weigh, do you let that happen? Because even Kobe in his prime, no fault of his own, missed the playoffs because he didn't have enough help around him, and he had to do everything. So coming off 5 straight finals appearances to an already injury-prone player, I got to think, man, do I let him do it, or do I just let him play 50 games and then get some serious rest? Because LeBron can do it. He is built like a Mack truck, and he is special. That's why he's one of the top 3 greatest players of all time. Steph Curry ain't LeBron. He ain't like that. He ain't built like that. I mean, he got hurt with KD and Clay helping him, Clay, excuse me, helping him with that offensive load and hiding him on defense. Like, he still got hurt with them and with that help. And now with all the attention on him, nowhere for him to hide on defense, like, I'm worried about the guy's health long term, really, because I can see just the overbearing pressure of just being dogged every night to an already injury-prone player coming off so many miles in his legs. I mean, the guy still does average 33 minutes a game, 33 to 34 for the past 5 seasons. Not crazy high, but they play like 25 extra games in the playoffs outside of an 82-game season. That's over 100. So it's just, is it worth it? And like you said, to be a 7th or 8th seed to get trounced by the Lakers or even the Clippers or a great team like Denver, I mean, and even if Clay comes back in March, like, man, you're going to take some time to get back to yourself. I don't want you to force yourself and re-injure yourself. Take some time, come back a little bit, but if we don't make it, that's fine. If we just barely miss it, or if I do some things to make us miss a few extra games so that we're in that Lakers situation, I know it's astronomical, but you don't have to tank and win 10 games to be successful in the draft anymore. That's what the draft odds have showed us. You can jump up a little bit, and even then, they're a smart drafting team. They got a good office. Bob Myers ain't a scrub, and they kind of know what they're doing there. It's just, I would sacrifice 1 year to look forward the next 10. And that's kind of my perspective, but that's kind of an unpopular opinion.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, man, isn't it crazy how fast things change in the NBA? Because, 2 months ago, I had told you in a couple months that the Warriors dynasty would be all but dead, that the champions would be in Canada, that the Lakers would be the odds-on favorite to win the championship next year, and that the NBA title run seems more open than it's been in over a decade, I think you'd say I'm crazy.
Yeah, and that the finals MVP could also switch jerseys in the offseason. I mean, I would not have saw that coming. I would have just, and that's what we love about the NBA is the uncertainties, the things we never see coming. Even amongst dynasties and teams winning year in, year out, there's constantly something going on. And even without KD, which, man, that sucks for the guy's career, because he had a real chance to make top 15 all time, for real, especially if he went to New York with Kyrie or they made a big move for another free agent. To make some serious history, and it's just, man, it's really rare where anybody comes back and they're even the same. And at 31 going on 32, we'll be happy and lucky if he's even 80%. I do think the New York Knicks still extend that offer because, like, what else are they going to do? I mean, they just did all those moves and freed up all that cap, and now that team is just cursed. Because even when they plan things perfectly, that fell to shambles really quick. So I think they still get that offer. It's just a matter of, where does he want to go? It's just, it's purely up to him. And maybe they tank for a year while he's under contract and try to figure some things out, keep that cap open, don't spend it all in one place, try to make a move for a guy like Beal, and I don't know, just, you got to do something with that money. So we'll see what happens with them. So no, I never saw any of this coming. I think it's just why we love the NBA.
Yeah, for sure. I'll be interested to see what KD does. I think the New York move could just do wonders for him. Obviously, he's just got to get well, but he can take his time there. If he went to the Knicks, you don't have to be a dynasty to earn respect there. I think that could be the ultimate situation to revive his legacy. Because the Knicks haven't won a championship since the 1970s.
Yep. They
still treat Patrick Ewing like he's, an idol. There's still a lot of Knicks fans that love and miss Carmelo Anthony. Like, I hear that frequently often. So the bar's not set ridiculously high. And so if you're able to take one of the biggest, most iconic franchises and make them relevant again, that's a good way to repair his legacy and earn a lot of that respect back that he lost by joining Golden State. Personally, I gained a lot of respect back just by the way he tore his Achilles again. The fact that he went back out there in the finals and put his health on the line for a team that he probably knew he was not likely to return to as a competitor and as a fighter, that really made me respect him quite a bit, because a lot of guys, whether you think it's the right decision or not, a lot of guys probably would have sat out that situation. But I think for him to really just take it to the next level, he needs to heal up, he needs to get better, but I think New York could be a good option for him.
Yeah, I think so too, and you're right. Most players probably would sit out in that situation. I mean, there was a guy not too long ago that sat out for a year because of a bruised quad. So, Kawhi Leonard. So, yeah, I think not many players would have done that, and I think somewhere out there, Jeremy Lin is taking a picture of the Larry O'Brien trophy and texting it to Melo just as a little subtle jab. So, but you're right. Ewing is still loved very much. You just kind of have to wonder, do you want to deal with James Dolan? He might be the reason they're cursed. I mean, James Dolan just kicked out a fellow legend in Charles Oakley, and then tried to make it look all better because he had Latrell Sprewell sitting next to him. So it's just, do you want to deal with that guy? I mean, that's kind of guy that LeBron dealt with in Cleveland. So is that the guy you want to handle? Is he going to take a step back? I mean, is Fitzgerald enough to make you want to have him as your coach? It's just, I wouldn't mind him going to New York. I actually would like to see that. Those Knicks fans need something. But I saw the injury happen. I'm like, shit, does that make him stay now in Golden State? Does that change his mind? Does that make him go, you know what? I have unfinished business here. I want to stay, because Bob Myers is up there crying. I mean, I don't think many people cry as hard as Bob Myers cried. I don't know if I cried that hard when my son was born, but Bob Myers put that on the table post KD injury, and I wonder if KD looks at that and goes, you know what, I'm not done here.
Possibly. They were definitely doing their best job to kiss up to KD, whether it was walking him to the tunnel. Fans included. Everybody is basically in a roundabout way pleading for Kevin Durant to stay, as they should. But something else that happened with the Achilles injury is the narrative around Kevin Durant changed. It kind of changed in the finals, because whether or not Draymond said it, we don't know for sure, but it was reported that he said earlier in the year, amidst a scuffle between the two players, that we don't need you. He told Kevin Durant, we don't need you. And we were kind of seeing that on the court. When Steph Curry was missing time, the Warriors were suffering. When Kevin Durant missed time, it didn't seem like it was hurting them at all. They were still performing well in the playoffs. They still swept the Portland Trailblazers. They were doing well. It wasn't until the finals that the Raptors really started taking advantage of it, and we were beginning to see, man, they really do miss Kevin Durant. And when he came back, they started looking like that dynastic team again. That first quarter, they were hitting all their threes. The spacing was there. And then he went down, and they ended up losing the series. So I think that needing to prove his value and prove to the Warriors that he is needed, I think that narrative's kind of dead now. I think people do recognize, they needed him to be that dynasty. They needed him to win those other championships.
For sure. I mean, part of me does think if Clay does not miss Game 6, we're definitely getting in Game 7, and then it's anyone's ball game. I mean, Clay did miss only one game in that one quarter. He also didn't close Game 2. I mean, they won that game. He didn't close it. He obviously wasn't there for Game 3, and then he couldn't close Game 6. So it's like, if he plays throughout the series, I'm probably taking Golden State to win that. And in a Game 7, like, Clay was going off in Game 6. And so I just feel like we were slightly robbed, but that some people just really aren't going to care because it happened to Golden State, and they won a championship, ironically, that exact same way. Their first one, actually, against LeBron without Kyrie and Love, so they just don't care as much. So, but I do think KD is needed for that team to keep it going. It's just a matter of what does he want to do. And KD himself, like Kawhi, like Kyrie, they're such different cats. It's hard to picture exactly what's going on in their head because we don't exactly know. Brooklyn really wasn't on the map till recently, and we'll see what Kawhi does after winning the championship in Toronto. So it's just those guys are a different breed, man. It's hard to see where they're all going to land out or exactly what they're thinking.
You're Kawhi Leonard. What do you do?
If the reason I left the Spurs is because what I said it was, which was because I'm going home to the Clippers, then that's what he wants to do. He wants to expand his brand, go to the Clippers. it's people say he can't leave because he won a championship. I'm saying, well, he has no obligation to stay now. He won y'all a championship. I mean, he did his duty. I mean, he broke history. He did something that Tracy McGrady, that Vince Carter, Chris Bosh, that no one's ever done before. And now he probably thinks I can win anywhere. And the Clippers got a good setup. They have Jerry West. Get him in a conference room with Steve Ballmer, the billionaire that will pay any luxury tax, with Jerry West that helped build the Golden State Warriors to who they are now, to Doc Rivers, who just showed that without a superstar, we won 47 games and took Golden State, when fully healthy, with KD to 6 games. They won 13 games more than Vegas predicted them to. I think you get him behind the door with those guys. It's going to be really hard to say no. And even so, you got Kawhi potentially joining a team that already won 47 games, and all they got to do is move Gallinari for another max cap spot. That's it. And with Gallinari having its highest value debatably in his entire career, I don't think it'll be that hard. Maybe, I don't know, maybe Utah lets Derek Favors goes and signs Gallinari and goes for that. I mean, I can see him getting rid of him pretty quickly without much added additional assets. They still have the Heat 2021 pick, their own pick. The pick they got, I think it was a Philly or OKC pick, and the Tobias Harris trade. They got assets. SGA, Landry Shamet, they have guys to move around, so they could package those guys for Beal. I mean, that's not a bad asset. SGA, Miami 2021, their future picks, that Philly OKC pick. Shamet if they need to. They have a lot of guys they can throw in for another star or another team, or just hit it in free agency. So, yeah, I mean, Kawhi might stay, but I think it's not that hard to see him go home and go to the Clippers.
Yeah, if I'm Kawhi, I do leave. I feel like he's in a unique situation where he can go and he can go pursue what he wants and where he's comfortable and where he'd enjoy to play the most, and no one's going to fault him for it.
Not at all.
Like, no people in Canada, that entire, like, country will love him forever.
Yeah.
He could do to not be a legend there, because he brought them something that they've never had before. And so he could leave, and like you said, I think he thinks he can win anywhere. I kind of think he can win anywhere based on what he showed us. And this was kind of the year for Kawhi where he went from a good player, one of the best players in the league, to now we're talking about his legacy.
Oh, yeah.
Talking about where he ranks among the great players all time. Like, that's what happened this year. That short list that he's on, it means something. He's been on 2 different franchises, and he's one of only 3 players to be on 2 different franchises and win a championship and finals MVP with both those 2 franchises, along with LeBron and Kareem. No player's ever done that in 3 locations. Can you imagine?
Oh, my God, yeah.
I think either option, I know everybody's just saying the Clippers, that would be a great team. If he joins the Clippers, that is a gritty team. That is a team that I feel like would fit with the way he plays so well, and has already showed, like, a lot of their players are just playoff-tested players, veterans. That team's going to be competing for a championship immediately if Kawhi goes there. And he could do something again for that franchise that they've never done before. They could try to steal some of the spotlight from the Lakers, and they could try to win their first franchise championship. Or, I get people aren't talking about this, but what if he did join the Lakers? I know it'd be crazy. That'd be the new super team, but adding those 2 championships that he has, where he was the finals MVP, he carried the Raptors dynasty, and you just add ring after ring onto that alongside LeBron and Anthony Davis. I mean, now you're just stacking championships on top of the legacy he's already built. So honestly, either of those LA teams, they kind of play out differently, but either way, I see that as a win, and that's the way he should do it, as I think personally.
Oh, yeah, for sure. I think the reason no one's really talking about the Lakers is because the word was, and this was before he got traded to Toronto, that he was kind of colder on the Lakers because LeBron joined, and that's just kind of not what he wants. But that's just, again, that could change. These guys change their mind all the time. So that, yeah, Kawhi going to the Lakers, that's That's the thing of nightmares. So, but you're right. He can also join a 47-win team that by themselves, no additional moves, they're in the mix, or they could make moves, free up a max cap spot, go after someone else, or trade it for a guy like Beal or an established star. So they have just so many options to play with. It's just a matter of what do you want to do, and no one's going to blame him. Now, let me ask you this. Do you think we saw Kawhi, like you said, his legacy get talked about a lot. I know I've been debating with people a lot where he ranks. People are already talking about top 15, top 20. Top 30, I think you can make an argument for. Top 25, but when this guy's getting his due, when we're trying, people are bringing up, well, can he break the top 10? Which I don't think. We first got to see if this guy can stay healthy with a degenerative quad issue, which is how it's been labeled as. Which is kind of a scary thing to hear. That means it's not going to get better. At best, it stays the same. It's just going to keep degenerating over years. So we'll see if he can stay healthy. But presumably, if he does, you can tell he's getting his due because we're talking about him in that light, which we've never done before. But winning a first championship in Toronto and the Clippers, a team that's never made the conference finals, I don't think, as an organization, would be insane. People might spontaneously combust for that man's career. I mean, that would be mayhem.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, I don't think that's premature. I think he's earned that. I think if he had retired now and if he wasn't a current NBA player, we'd look at his legacy and say, yeah, he deserves to be that high. I don't think quite like not top 10. The top 10 is so ridiculously stacked with a lot of players that you could even make arguments are the greatest ever. Like, there's a lot of guys who have that argument just depending on how you spin it. He's not quite that high, but 15, 20, I definitely think he could be there because what is he missing? He's won a couple finals MVPs. He's won a championship for a franchise. No one expected it. Beating the Warriors, even if the Warriors, had taken a step back or had some injuries, like, it's still a very respectable thing. It's something no one else had done other than LeBron James. And then on top of that, Kawhi's got 2 Defensive Player of the Year awards. For the longest time, we've seen Kawhi as the best defensive player on the floor, night in and night out. But now he's going out there and he's doing things historic, setting playoff records offensively. So what is this guy's game missing? I made a video in the past where I compared Scottie Pippen to Kawhi Leonard. But at this point, Kawhi is beyond Pippen. He's a rich man's Pippen and he's a poor man's Michael Jordan, which is not a slight to Kawhi. I'm just saying he's like earned that at this point, where he's not quite the transcendent, clear, undisputed greatest player ever. But, man, he can dominate a game offensively and defensively, and he's clutch. He's so clutch. Even at the NBA Finals, when it wasn't even just scoring, sometimes he was getting the big rebound when it needed to happen. Sometimes he was getting a big steal when it needed to happen. He's just a winner. And if he goes and he wins on another franchise, we're easily talking top 10. I might be making a GOAT video for him in my GOAT series if he wins with another franchise. So no, he's definitely earned that, top 15 ranking in my opinion.
Oh yeah, and just to plug that in real quick while we're talking about that leaderboard, that GOAT series you did with guys like Wilt, Bill Russell, LeBron, Kobe, that was a tremendous series. And for those who are listening, go check that out. That put a lot of time, work, effort, a lot of thought went into those videos, so I would contend that people check that out. But with Kawhi, the only thing he's really missing is longevity, because even up till 2014 when he won, he was averaging that regular season 12.8 points per game. Parker was leading scorer at 16.8 or 16.5, something like that. He just needs that longevity because even in 2015 against the Clippers, he didn't really step up. We were kind of waiting. He had good points. He was getting there, but we got bounced by a hobbled CP3 Clippers team, and we're still waiting for him. 2016, going against OKC, bounced in 6. He was, again, very solid. KD ate his lunch, and that was that. 2017, he just unleashes himself across the NBA and kills it. Unfortunately, gets hurt, and we all know how the rest of the story goes. And then you have this season where he also kills it. So it's just, in terms of pure eliteness, he still hasn't gotten an MVP or anything of that nature. But he's right up there. We just need more longevity, because right now that would probably be, if we're nitpicking, the one thing he's missing. And I don't want to say that's even for certain that he'll achieve that. I want to see that happen. It's just, when you have something labeled as degenerative, that is scary as hell to hear. Because he had 20 plus games off in the regular season, and he's still limping in the playoffs. That's kind of a scary thing. So he played 9 games in 2018, missed 20 games this season in the regular season, mostly because of rest and load management, quote unquote, and he's still limping in the playoffs. Like, damn, that makes me worried. But outside of that, all things considered equal, he's just lacking longevity, and that's it.
Yeah, I agree with that, and it's kind of interesting. I'm not sure if it's because Kawhi's so stoic or his reserved personality, but it's funny that he's only 27 years old, and we're talking about legacy. 27 years old. Michael Jordan didn't win his first championship until he was 28. Kawhi Leonard has a whole nother, as long as he stays healthy, which, is a whole nother thing. If he stays healthy, he has another career ahead of him that we haven't seen yet. And he's already a 2-time champion, a 2-time finals MVP, and a 2-time Defensive Player of the Award winner. So he's got so much time to add to his legacy. And honestly, I think it's kind of funny that we're having the conversation right now about where does he rank all time. And it's like, man, we're talking about a guy who's still only 27. He turns 28 later this month. But the guy's young. The guy is just now technically reaching his prime. And I think by how we've seen him playing for the Raptors this season, it's like, yeah, that makes sense. This looks like a man reaching his prime as an NBA superstar, because we haven't seen him offensively be this skilled, be able to carry a team offensively and defensively the way he has. He's unreal, man. And at this point, if he's not the best player in the NBA, if everybody can't call him that unanimously, LeBron's really got to show me something next season. He's really got to show me something, because Kawhi he's winning in the playoffs. He's doing it on both sides. At this point, is he just not flashy enough for you? Like, what does he need to have that title?
Exactly, and it will still be tough, because in Kawhi's case, he has his peers, your LeBrons, your Hardens. We'll see how Curry responds. If he goes completely nuts, then you also have guys, youngins behind you. The guy who's about to win an MVP, Giannis. And we saw him flashing a 3 in the playoffs a little bit. Not just kind of standoffish threes, but man, if he develops that, that's game over. And he doesn't have that to just develop. He really has a basic offense, and he's playing like a modern-day Shaq. If he develops post moves, a floater, a quick mid-ranger, a hook, a fadeaway, things like that, and that's 7 things he can still develop, and he's 23, 24. Damn. So it's almost unfair, because Kawhi's got his peers than just guys who are just on the come up right behind him, ready to make some noise as well. So it's going to be, it's his for the taking, but it's not set in stone just yet. But we'll see with LeBron. Can he stay healthy? Is he going to return back to form? His first missed playoffs since he was a kid. We'll see how much that rest has done for him. And I would hope that it would bring him back to that kind of 2016 level a little bit. So we'll see how that goes there. But like you said, it's wide open everywhere, from awards to people competing to teams in contention. I still think, regardless of KD going down, which does suck, and I worry about that man's career, we still have a crazy free agency ahead of us, and I expect some moves in the draft as well.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it'll be interesting, too, not just from LeBron's perspective, but from Anthony Davis. We're talking about all these players like Kawhi, Giannis, these young stars in the NBA as candidates for the best player in the NBA. Anthony Davis should be right there, too, but he hasn't shown us that his team can win, that he can lead a team to win. If the Lakers don't have a successful long season, not only will it be one of the most disappointing teams ever, but if they don't advance far into the playoffs, we're going to have some serious questions about Anthony Davis, too, because this man's been on some good teams, and he hasn't been able to make some serious playoff runs. Even Giannis, at his young age, he's led a Bucks team to be contenders in an Eastern Conference, and they haven't been able to break through. But at least they're there, you know. And I want to see something from Anthony Davis. He's going to be the one heading into next year that I'm like, it's time for him to show me something, because he has an opportunity better than anything he's had at this point. And if he isn't able to show it to me, I'm really going to question his ability to lead and win.
That's a really good point. You're right. People should mention that guy's name more, because he's just around the same age. I mean, he's still a guy entering his prime. He's right there, so we'll really get to see. Both their legacies are kind of, LeBron and AD are kind of dependent on this season. I mean, I know LeBron is cemented as a top 3 player all time. I know he thinks that he's already surpassed MJ, but man, we keep hearing the stigma, not Kawhi. LeBron doesn't have help, but career-wise, you have Kyrie, Wade, Bosh, and now Anthony Davis. And then on the outside looking in, even though he had a tough go, he was in his prime, just wasn't a good fit. Kevin Love on the 5th. That's a lot of talent. Those are a lot of good players. Wade is the top 3 shooting guard all time. That guy's a stud. Anthony Davis, despite not winning, that's a stud, like you just said. So you got no excuses, nothing, none. Obviously, we still have to see how the rest of this season turns out. We got to see if the Lakers can get out of their own damn way, front office wise. Can Pelinka be competent? Can Jeannie Buss stop giving the reins to other people outside the organization, like those shadow owners they have, to her best friend? Just how does that work out? Can 3 head coaches fit on a bench with Frank Vogel, Jason Kidd, and that Memphis head coach, who took the Memphis Grizzlies to the conference finals? Have we ever seen that? 3 head coaches on the bench with previous playoff head coaching experience, 2 of which have been to a conference finals? I can't think of anything. And it has nothing to do with egos or anything, because they all seem easygoing, but they all have done their things their way, and they're probably going to think they're all right because they've had some success, albeit outside of Kidd, but even then has an ego because he's a player too. So it's just will those guys fit perfectly? I don't know. I personally like Frank Vogel, but that's a lot of hands on the wheel there.
It's kind of brilliant, or it's incredibly foolish, depending on how you look at it, because essentially what it looks like to me is it's the ultimate LeBron James insurancy plan. Because if he gets his coaches fired, you just got the next up assistant. He'll take over. And if he gets fired, next up, you got your next coach right there. So they're ready for all these coaching changes that typically come with LeBron. But yeah, it's has me a little bit concerned. How's this team going to fit? It's really exciting as a Lakers fan to see the talent, and they're going to be in the playoffs, assuming health. They're going to be in the playoffs. But they still need shooters. You don't have many guys locked down. Every single year we're wondering, how's LeBron James going to look? How's Anthony Davis going to fit with LeBron? And how are, like you said, all these coaches going to work together? Because when you've got so many guys who are used to doing things their own way and used to leading a certain way, can all these alphas, work together? So it'll be interesting. The Lakers season is like any season involving LeBron and the Lakers is going to have plenty of drama.
I want one Jason Kidd timeout of him dumping water again. And you have the best actor in the NBA with LeBron. Make it happen. He can sell it. He's doing Space Jam. Let's make this a thing. I would love to see that happen. But I personally believe the NBA is better, just like how the NFL is better when the Cowboys are good, or big-time organizations. Same applies to the NBA. We benefit, whether fans want to admit it or not, when the Lakers are better, when the Celtics are better, when the Knicks are better, the NBA is better. So we have a lot that can go on, and just free agency is just getting started. Draft is in 5 or 6 days. But Johnny, man, I appreciate you coming on just to give a little rant here about Johnny. He was a guy that when initially starting, helped give me some advice on how to start, what to do, all the technical aspects, because I had no idea what I'm doing. Still don't. But seeing this guy, I was hoping to catch at one point, sub-wise, just skyrocketed past 1,000, now past 5,000, probably soon to get 10,000. Like, your success just over the span of a few months has been it's been amazing, and it's like, man, it's almost inspiring, dude. So I appreciate you taking the time to come out, talked with me, go on this podcast, and still keeping the small guys in mind. And for all those listening, give this man a look. He's on my channel under other subscribers to watch.
Yeah, thanks, man. Thanks for having me on. Absolutely love the channel, and every time I'm on here talking with you, just your knowledge of the game as a whole, it's incredibly impressive. Just how much you know all the teams and the rosters in and out, and the way you're able to break it down. So keep doing what you're doing. It's gonna keep growing, bro. And yeah, it's fun. Let's do it again soon. I can't wait for this. The season just ended, and I already can't wait for next season.
That's what makes it so great, and hopefully maybe we'll get back in touch. We'll see how the Lakers offseason goes. If they get Kawhi, I might just stop watching the NBA for like a week and just take a break, huddle down in the corner, and just think about what could have been, hugging my Tim Duncan jersey and just kind of crying softly into the night. So I appreciate you coming on, man.
Yeah, thanks, man. I'll talk to you again soon.
Thank you, sir. Thank you guys for listening, and this has been the Get Real Podcast. More content will be following soon, coming up for the draft, hopefully a post-show. So tune in. Thank you guys for your time. This has been the Get Real Podcast.